Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving deep into AI today,
Okay.
but with a twist.
Yeah.
We're looking at it through the humanities.
Interesting.
What could poetry and philosophy possibly have to do with algorithms?
Right.
Well, you sent in this paper, Provocations from the Humanities for Generative AI Research.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's really got me thinking about how relevant these fields are to the future of AI and what it means for all of us.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's about way more than just theory.
Right.
This research is really diving deep into how AI is changing how we experience culture, how we learn, and even the power dynamics, you know, in a world that's increasingly run by algorithms.
Exactly. And this paper, it just throws out these provocations. Like, get this, bigger isn't always better when it comes to AI.
Interesting.
You know how everyone's like obsessed with these massive AI models?
Right.
Well, this research challenges that.
It's a really fascinating shift in perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so used to equating size with power in tech.
Right.
But when it comes to AI, it's just not that simple.
Okay, so let's break down these provocations one by one.
Yeah.
This first one really grabbed my attention. It's all about meaning.
Okay.
The authors are saying that while AI can create words, it's us, humans, who actually give those words meaning.
Right.
And they use this really interesting example of AI hallucinations. You ever seen those?
Oh, yeah.
Where the AI spits out something that sounds super convincing, but it's totally made up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Becoming so common.
It really is.
And it highlights a crucial point.
Yeah.
We're hardwired to look for meaning.
Right.
Even in things that are generated by algorithms.
Right.
We try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Find the intention behind the words.
Exactly.
Even if there isn't one.
Right. It's like our brains can't help but see a story,
Yeah.
even if it's just an AI.
Right.
Stringing together random facts.
Yeah.
It makes you think about all the information you see online. Articles, social media posts.
Yeah.
Even things like product reviews.
Uh-huh.
How much of that is being written by AI now?
Right.
And how does that change how you interpret what you read?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
And this paper digs even deeper, bringing in ideas from literary theory, like the concept of the death of the author, to explain how meaning isn't fixed. It's created in the interaction between the text and the reader.
Right.
So even when AI creates something, it's us who ultimately decide what it means.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah,
so it's not just about spotting fake news or AI-generated content.
Right.
It's about understanding that even when AI is involved, we, the readers, still have a lot of power in shaping how we interpret and understand the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the second provocation, which is all about AI needing to understand culture. And we're not just talking about translating languages here.
Right.
It's about grasping the deeper nuances and values of different cultures.
Right. And the paper brings up some real-world examples of where AI has fallen short. Like when the translation lab struggled to translate African languages accurately.
Right.
It shows that building AI without truly understanding different cultures can perpetuate bias and even cause harm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they introduced this concept of data colonialism, which is basically the idea that companies are profiting from the data of marginalized communities without really understanding or representing those cultures fairly.
Right.
Think about all the data we generate online, our searches, our likes, our posts.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable, and the question is who's benefiting from that?
It's like a digital gold rush.
Right.
But instead of gold, it's our cultural data that's being mined.
Exactly.
And it makes you wonder, are we all unknowingly participating in this just by using these technologies?
It's a real concern.
Yeah.
And it's something we need to be aware of as we navigate this increasingly digital world.
Okay, on to provocation number 3.
Okay.
And this one challenges a common assumption.
Okay.
The idea that we can simply de-bias AI by cleaning up the data. The paper argues that it's way more complex than that.
They're saying that historical data, which is what a lot of AI is trained on, already has built-in biases and reflects the power dynamics of the time it was created. You can't just erase those biases with a few tweaks to the code.
Like they say garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly.
If the data itself is flawed, the AI is going to inherit those flaws.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They give a great example with the HathiTrust Digital Library, which is doing incredible work, making millions of digitized books accessible.
Wow.
But even with all that data, there are still gaps, voices missing, entire perspectives that are absent, and that's because the books themselves reflect the biases of their time.
So instead of aiming for this impossible ideal of perfect representation in AI, the paper suggests we need to shift our thinking.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding the limitations of the data, knowing where it comes from, and critically evaluating what it can and can't tell us.
It's about asking questions like, who created this data? What biases might it contain? What stories are being told? And more importantly, what stories are being left out?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond blind trust in algorithms.
Yeah.
And becoming more critical thinkers about the information we encounter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of challenging assumptions, the next provocation really flips the script. On a common belief in the tech world.
Okay, hit me with it.
Get ready for this. The paper says that bigger models aren't always better models.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I thought the whole point was to make these AI models as big and complex as possible.
Right. That's the prevailing narrative.
Right.
But this research throws a wrench in that they're saying that bigger doesn't always equal better results. And they connect this to some pretty deep philosophical ideas about the nature of knowledge itself.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that philosophical connection.
Well, they bring up the work of feminist philosophers who have long argued against the idea of a single universal truth.
Okay.
Thinkers like Margaret Cavendish and Bucci Emecheta
Okay.
have emphasized the importance of diverse perspectives and the limitations of trying to find one grand theory of everything.
Instead of one giant AI that supposedly knows it all, we might actually get better results from smaller, more specialized models.
That's the idea.
Wow.
The paper highlights some really exciting work being done in the humanities, where researchers are building AI models tailored to specific fields and questions. For example, there's this project by Gonzalez Garcia and Welbeck, who developed an AI assistant specifically for research on Irish migration.
So it's like having a team of AI specialists instead of one AI generalist.
Right.
That's fascinating.
And it shows how the humanities are not just critiquing AI, but also actively shaping its development in new and exciting ways.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
And this is just the first 4 provocations.
Right.
I can't wait to see what else this paper has in store.
Yeah, me too. And, you know, that brings us to another provocation.
Okay.
One that really digs into the very building blocks of AI, the data itself.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because you always hear that data is the new oil.
Right.
But this paper kind of pushes back on that.
Yeah, they're saying it's not that simple. I mean, data is valuable.
Right.
But it's not just some raw material like oil that we can extract and refine.
Right.
Each piece of data, a tweet, a photo, a sensor reading, carries a unique meaning and context.
It's like data isn't just fuel for the AI engine. It's like the DNA that shapes how that engine runs.
Exactly. And what's concerning is that there's often this lack of transparency around where this data comes from and how it's being used. The paper calls this documentation debt.
Okay.
Basically, we're accumulating all this data without really keeping good records of its origins and potential biases.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Imagine building a house without knowing where the lumber came from or if it was structurally sound.
Exactly. And thankfully, some researchers are starting to address this by creating data sheets and data essays, ways of documenting the context and limitations of data sets.
Interesting.
It's like giving data a history, a story, so that we can understand its strengths and weaknesses.
So instead of just blindly feeding data into the AI machine, we need to be asking questions like, where did this data come from? Who collected it? What biases might it contain?
Exactly. And those questions lead us to another related provocation. The idea that openness isn't always an easy solution.
I can see that. I mean, open source AI sounds great in theory. Everyone has access. But I guess it's more complicated than that.
The paper argues that open access to data raises all sorts of tricky questions. Especially when it comes to sensitive cultural information.
They bring up a really interesting example, fan fiction communities.
Yeah.
You know that content is technically open online,
Right.
but it's often shared within a closed community with certain expectations of privacy and respect.
Exactly. Just because something is publicly accessible doesn't mean it's fair game to use for any purpose.
Right.
Scraping data from these communities without their consent
Right.
would be a huge violation of trust.
Yeah, it reminds me of that project Documenting the Now, which is working to archive social media posts related to Black Lives Matter, and it's incredibly valuable for historical research.
Yeah.
But they're also grappling with these ethical complexities.
Yeah.
Of archiving such sensitive data.
Absolutely. It raises questions about ownership, control, and the potential harm of using data without considering its cultural context.
And even if the data eye is open, there's still the issue of who has the resources to actually use it.
Right.
Which brings us to the next provocation.
Okay.
And this one really highlights the power dynamics at play in the world of AI.
Yes. The paper argues that this high cost of computing is actually driving the consolidation of power in the hands of corporations.
Because only the big players can afford to build and train these massive AI models,
Exactly. Universities and independent researchers just can't compete with the resources that companies like Google or Meta can throw at these problems.
And it's not just the financial cost either. It's also the environmental impact. These AI models require massive amounts of energy to run, which contributes to carbon emissions and climate change.
It's a huge concern.
It is.
And it's something we need to be more aware of as consumers.
Yeah.
You know, our reliance on these AI-powered services comes at a cost, both financially and environmentally.
So this concentration of AI power in the hands of a few companies, that's a pretty big deal, right?
It is.
What does that mean for everyday people, like you and me?
Well, it means that the algorithms that shape our lives, the news we see, the products we're shown, even the job opportunities we have access to, are increasingly controlled by a small group of corporations.
That's kind of scary, isn't it? Feels like we're losing agency.
Yeah.
Like we're becoming puppets to these algorithms.
That's a legitimate concern.
It is.
And it's something the humanities can help us understand better.
Oh.
You know, they give us the tools to critically examine
power structures.
And the ways in which technology can be used to control and manipulate.
It's like the humanities are sounding the alarm, saying, hey, wake up, there's a lot more going on here. Than just cool tech gadgets.
Exactly. And that leads us to the final provocation, which gets to the heart of what it means to be human. In an age of AI.
Okay, this is where it gets really deep. Hit me with it.
The paper introduces this concept called the data episteme.
Okay.
Basically, the idea that we're increasingly defining ourselves and the world around us through data points. Everything from our emotions to our intelligence is being quantified and measured.
So it's like we're being reduced to data points, like we're losing our complexity and individuality.
That's the worry. And they give this really chilling example, Amazon's use of algorithms to track and monitor their workers.
Wow.
Every move, every minute is tracked and evaluated, turning human beings into data points in this giant efficiency machine.
It's like the ultimate dystopian nightmare. AI promising freedom and convenience, but actually leading to greater control and surveillance.
And it highlights the need for humanistic perspectives in AI development. We need to be asking questions like, what does it mean to be human? What values are we encoding in these algorithms? Are we creating a world that celebrates human diversity? Or one that reduces us to data points?
This is mind-blowing stuff. And it makes me realize that the stakes are incredibly high.
They are.
This isn't just about building cool tech. It's about shaping the future of humanity itself.
Exactly. And the humanities have a crucial role to play in ensuring that future is one where AI is used to empower, not exploit, human beings.
Wow, we really went deep on this one.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind tour of AI and the humanities. And it's clear these two fields, they have a lot to offer each other.
My brain is like bursting with all these new ideas and connections. I mean, who knew that like philosophy and poetry could be so relevant to AI?
It's a good reminder that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by human values, cultural contexts, historical power dynamics. And the humanities give us the tools to really critically examine those forces.
So this isn't just about like fixing AI. or making it more ethical. It's about fundamentally rethinking how we approach AI development.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about bringing humanistic expertise to the table right from the beginning, not as an afterthought.
And you know, one thing that really struck me throughout all these provocations was this emphasis on meaning making. You know, AI can create words, images, even music.
Right.
But it's us humans who give those creations meaning.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
We can't just give up that responsibility, even in a world that's just saturated. With AI-generated content, we still have the power to interpret it, to critique it, to shape the narratives that emerge.
We're not just passive consumers.
Right.
We're active participants in this technological revolution.
Yeah, and that's empowering.
It is.
Even if it's a little daunting sometimes.
It is daunting.
But the humanities can help us navigate this complex landscape.
Yeah.
They give us the tools to think critically, to question assumptions, to challenge power structures.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming our agency in a world that feels increasingly dominated by algorithms?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of agency, the paper ends with this really thought-provoking call to action. They say we need to resist the extraction of humanity's expertise.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think they mean by that?
Well, it's kind of a cautionary note about how the tech industry often approaches the humanities. You know, they'll mine these fields for insights, for ideas, but without truly valuing or supporting the disciplines themselves.
So it's like taking the fruit, but not tending to the tree.
Exactly. And it's something we need to be mindful of as we move forward. You know, true collaboration between AI and the humanities. It requires mutual respect, investment, and a recognition of the inherent value of both fields.
It's about building bridges, not just extracting resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I find hope. You know, there's this growing movement of researchers and artists and activists who are working to create a more ethical, inclusive, and human-centered approach to AI.
That gives me hope, too.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are you walking away with? What's the biggest takeaway for you?
I think for me, it's the reminder that the future of AI, it's not predetermined. It's something we're actively shaping with every choice we make. Every question we ask, every story we tell, and the humanities that give us the power to write a better future. One where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
I love that. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
Keep asking questions. Keep challenging assumptions. And keep believing in the power of the humanities to shape a brighter technological future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, keep diving deep.